Hello and welcome for the first time to the Wool Sea Knitting Podcast, formerly known as the Night Sky Knitting Podcast. My name is Rachel, I am your host, and I am a knitter based out of Ottawa, Canada, and this channel is my chatty outlet to talk all things knitting with occasional guest appearances by other crafts as my magpie brain sees another shiny object and goes, oh, I bet I could learn how to make those things. And yeah, I'm happy to have you along. Today is Friday, June 16th, I think, and it's been over 2 months since I filmed a podcast, almost 2 months since I filmed any videos at all, and I'm like a little bit nervous. I haven't filmed in so long. I'm announcing a new podcast name. I have a pile of things to show you. It's kind of hot where I am. So yeah, okay. What's been going on? First, changing the podcast name. I talked about this in my last video, my knit and chat, but I have decided to rename my channel and all associated accounts, etc. with the name Wool Sea, spelled like this, like wool and sea, because it's a fun pun on we'll see, the way that I pronounce it in my accent. And I still really like the name Night Sky Knitting, but it doesn't really feel very me. It feels a little bit more whimsical than I think is true to myself. I'm a little bit more, I'm just gonna find out, I guess. I'm gonna try something and see if it works. I love to fuck around and find out. And sometimes people will be like, oh, what's your knitting handle? And I'd be like, Night Sky Knitting. And it felt like, I don't know, a little bit too cutesy for me. And I like Wool Sea more. I like the certain amount of humor in the pun. I like the uncertainty of it. It feels like I'm not taking myself as seriously, and it feels like it embodies what I'm trying to do with this channel and the attitude of fun that I'd like to bring to my hobbies. I want to always remind myself to just try things, see how it goes. It's not the end of the world if you have to frog half the yoke of your cumulus tee on 2.5mm needles and silk twice. Ha 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 ha. That's foreshadowing. It's not even foreshadowing, that's just a spoiler. That's something I'm going to talk about later. And sometimes you just have to cast on and we'll see how it turns out. So welcome. I'm going to take a little while to slowly roll that out and change the official name of this because I imagine for a lot of people, they're going to see the change and be like, I didn't subscribe to this person. Who's this person? So it'll go a little bit slowly, but yeah. So hi, I'm Rachel, and this is the Wool Sea Knitting Podcast. I don't know, I like it. I like wool. Okay, next, where have I been? Spring is, I guess, for both this year and last year, as I've been in grad school, a very busy season. The way that my program is structured, you're kind of forced to take a spring intensive course if you want to graduate anywhere close to on time. So I have been in a spring intensive course, working a lot, and also writing my mini thesis. The first draft deadline was this week, so I finally have a little bit of time to breathe. And because now that my course is done and I'm done school forever, and I'm not in finals, and I'm not doing this, and I'm not grading papers, and I'm not doing all those things, I'm like, what am I going to do with my time? How did I used to fill my time? Oh yeah, I filmed myself talking about knitting and posted on the internet. So, hi, I'm back. I've missed you guys. I also turned 26 and visited Toronto, and I went to Knit City, Montreal. Not in Toronto, in Montreal. And I filmed a little bit for that, and I'm hoping to make a video on it soon. I've been waffling about that because, well, now it's been almost a month since Knit City, and I'm not sure anybody really wants to watch that video, but I think it would still be a lot of fun for me to make, and that's okay if you guys don't want to click on it. No hard feelings. Okay, but before I jabber on forever, I need to get started in talking about the knitting. Okay. So, the very first finished object that I'm going to talk to you about, I don't have to show you because it was a gift for my mother that I gave her over a month ago for her birthday. So I knit my mother My Favorite Things knitwear camisole number 5. It's the broken rib one with the really nice Y kind of decorative increases and decreases down the front. And here is a photo of it and a video of it. I'll have them on screen. I knit this in a 65-35 silk linen fingering weight blend. And I knit the whole body of that twice because I knit it according to the size that corresponded with my mother's bust. And the thing is that I didn't knit a gauge swatch, which you should do. And it turns out that when you get silk linen blend wet, it'll grow like mad. And so I think the pattern gauge for that is supposed to be 28 stitches in 4 inches, the stitch gauge. And I was closer to like 25 and a half, 26. So I frogged back up to where you do the triangles before you connect all of them for the body. And cast on, I did some like, I don't know, fingers crossed math, I'll say. Like, I think that this is the math. I don't trust my mathematical abilities, and I think that I'm right. And then cast on the amount of stitches that I thought was appropriate given the gauge that I knew that I had for the back, because I didn't knit 2 triangles for the back because I think that's usually a very silly design choice. I don't understand it. What's so scandalous about shoulder blades that you need to have like triangles that are clearly meant to cover like a chest on the back? And also I was playing a pretty extreme game of yarn chicken, so I just cast on all the stitches for the back that I thought would work with the gauge that I had, and then worked the decorative decreases and did all the things, and it turned out, I think, perfectly. My mom swears that she loves it. My brother has sent me photos, or she has sent me photos that my brother has taken of her wearing it. She says that it's really nice, and also by drastically decreasing the amount of stitches for the circumference of her body, it ended up being a little bit higher coverage, which is really good because it meant that her bra strap is covered, and like the higher stitch count for the front means that it has very good upper body coverage, but then it fits her the way that she wants. And it meant that I had more yarn to make it longer, which is something that she also didn't like about the original version that grew so much widthwise. So I found it to be fun. I really like doing the decorative shaping on the front, and I really like broken rib. It's just I find it a really fun stitch pattern, and each row is interesting because I like ribbing and I also like knitting stockinette, and I like varying between the two. So that's how that project went. The very second, you can tell I'm out of practice. The second finished object that I have, I'm wearing, and this is my twist loop top by Other Loops, whose real name is Maya Clovdo? Nope, I'm not going to try. But it'll be linked down below. But this is a pretty popular top. I've seen a lot of people knit it in the past year. And it is a high neck fingering weight ribbed cami with these decorative cables going down the front. I'll stand up and show you, and I won't talk while you can't see my mouth. And I knit this in Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino in the color Soft Aqua, and I think it took me exactly 75 grams, so 2.5 balls of this Cotton Merino. And I really enjoyed knitting it. It's a really fun project, and I really like the final result. The one thing that made a big difference in me liking the final result was not anything to do with this pattern, and has everything to do with these neat little things I bought from Simon's. Keep my hair off my shoulders so you can see the shaping of this garment while I'm talking about it. But I finished this garment. It took me a while. My goal was to get it done in time for Knit City Montreal, but I was just so busy with things happening throughout May, and I was prioritizing the gift knit for my mother, and I also just lost track of time, that I did not get this done in time for my goal, which was to wear it to Knit City Montreal because it was a good spring knit. And I knit this along with my friend Carolyn, who I went to Knit City with and who I stayed with, and who you will meet in my Knit City Montreal video. And she chose the pattern, and she got me the pattern, and I got her the yarn I gave her yarn that she chose through a Hobie sponsorship. And it was fun. It was like a two-person knit along with me and one of my very good friends. So I wanted to wear this with her. I didn't get it done in time. Boo, but it's done now and I've been wearing it quite a bit. I really liked working with the cotton merino, and so far I've liked how it's held up, but I've only been wearing it for a couple weeks. But it took me a couple weeks to start wearing this on a regular basis because I tried it on and I wanted to wear it to my last ever class because I'd finished it the day before. And then immediately you could just see my two bra straps going like right here. And it was super obvious and I didn't love that. I don't normally mind a visible bra strap that much, especially if it doesn't like clash significantly with the garment. But in this case, it was kind of really obvious and it was kind of a bummer and I felt like, I don't know, it detracted from the look, so I didn't want to wear this. So I thought about it and I was like, okay, how do I make this more wearable? Because this is a garment that I would really, I think, prefer to wear a bra with. And so I looked up, I checked Simon's, which is a department store, sort of. It's a big store here in Canada. It's usually multiple floors like a department store, but I'm pretty sure almost everything they stock are all in-house brands. But they kind of have everything, and so I checked, and I was correct, and they did have these bra strap converters where you hook this onto the back of your bra strap and it will make it into a racer back, and I got 4 of them for $6, 2 of these circular ones. I have the clear one on me right now, which is in this kind of plastic, and then these kind of ovular ones. And perfect, problem solved. I mean, you can still kind of sometimes, if I move, see my bra strap poking out right here. I bet if I fiddled with it, I could get that to go away. But this has been a comfortable, super wearable change, and it was $6, and it was at the Rideau Mall. So if you're in Canada, I recommend. I wouldn't be surprised if they ship outside Canada. I also don't know if maybe Simon's has stores outside Canada, but I didn't encounter them until I moved here, so that's that. But ever since I got this bra strap converter, woohoo, man. I like it. And it works for other tops too where my bra straps show, because I really like a racer back or this kind of high neck, shoulder cutout style top. Normally I just either didn't wear a bra or suffered through my bra showing, but not anymore. So that was a fun way to just kind of make my knitwear a little bit more wearable without it having to be some massive adjustment to the garment itself. And I'm happy. I really like this color. I think I'm echoing, I echoed the sentiments that a lot of other people have expressed about cotton merino. Like, I know recently Emily of High Fiber Knits and Knits by Mandy have both talked about enjoying it and how it's a really good summer fiber, because also the second they said it, I was like, oh man, it is a little lotiony, but I didn't notice that before. But the wool helps it have just a little bit of memory, which is nice for a ribbed pattern like this, and it keeps it from having that kind of grippy, taxing on the wrists and arms knit experience, but is still a lightweight summer fiber. It gets very, very humid here in Ottawa. It's more or less built on a swamp, and I have been finding this pretty comfortable considering, and I enjoyed the pattern. I don't know if I made, did I make the barest of modifications? So I was looking at the project pages, it to be, fit like this up here, A+, achieved, I'm happy. And since cotton has a tendency to grow, I'm prepared, I'm just expecting to at some point sew in elastic along the armholes and have that cinch them in a little bit, but I wanted it to be the fit that I have around the bust, but then tuck in easily to my pants like I'm currently wearing it. So I did just a few decreases kind of on a whim along the sides, and I did this on the train, and if I wasn't so like hazy out of it in the midst of traveling, I would have done it a little bit differently, but I'm still happy with the result. So on each side I did these decreases. I mean, they work, but I think it would have looked a little bit nicer if I had had the knit columns being the ones that connected in the middle as opposed to the purl columns, but not enough that bothers me even a little bit. It's just a minor aesthetic thing, and also why I'm not a designer. So I don't really think about these things in advance, but I'm really happy with the fit, happy with the garment, and happy that I can make a fingering weight 3mm garment and not be unhappy. In the process, I found it enjoyable even if it took me a while. Because the camisole for my mother and this are the first garments that I would consider to be fingering weight or in a fingering weight gauge. I have made many fingering weight Jessie May designs before, but you normally knit them at more of a DK weight gauge, so it's not really the same. But no, I like this, and that's a good thing because I have a lot of fingering weight yarn that I plan on making into fingering weight garments for the summer. So, okay, moving on to my next finished object. I finished this last night, so now I'm going out of chronological order. But I have, I think, 3 ends left to weave in. I was doing that this morning and then, things were happening, so I stopped. But I made a Ghost Whisperer by Park Williams of Park and Knit. Oh, I knit this in the second size, if I didn't say, and my measurements will be linked at the bottom of the description box below. But this I made in the second size as well. And so, yes, this is my Ghost Whisperer. It is a mohair lace top knit at a huge gauge to get this sort of mesh see-through fabric. It's a not unpopular pattern, so I'm not surprised if you've seen this before. And I knit this in the Wandering Flock silk mohair in the color Mother of Pearl. And this is what that looks like in cake form. And here's the label. And I got this at Knit City Montreal as a real splurge, as a real treat. So yeah, here you go. Mother of Pearl, which I'm told is one of their newer colorways. So, okay, I'm gonna put it on over this, not because I think it's gonna be a nice outfit, but just to give you an idea of fit. Really not the best with all the lumpiness happening around my waist, but I think that this kind of gives you an idea of what it is that we are working with. And it has these big puffy sleeves. It's sort of fitted in the body. And it's a see-through mohair lace top. You have an I-cord neck. I think that mine ended up wider than the pattern specifies because the designer, Park Williams, really stressed not to have too tight of a neck because it's a pretty rigid bind off and a pretty rigid fabric, so you don't want to be like tugging it over your head. And I think being in the past more of a tighter knitter and aware of that, I think I maybe overcorrected, so I'm thinking I'm going to sew in some elastic to just cinch that up a little bit so that I can wear it with a bunch of my high neck tops and have this not happen. Sorry, I really can't wear it for very long because it's actually quite warm. Yes, so I used this with a skein of Wandering Flock that I bought at Knit City Montreal, which I had originally planned not to buy because I had gone in with something of a game plan and I had looked up the vendors beforehand and I thought, oh, it's so interesting, the Wandering Flock is going to be vending. However, they are wildly outside of my budget and I need to make sure that I'm not just buying single skeins of really out there yarns because they're pretty and then not have any idea what to do with them. And the conversion rate for a lot of American hand-dyed yarns into Canadian is really brutal. Honestly, I think like a pro tip for American knitters, which I know many of you are if you're interested in hand-dyed yarn, if the shipping is not nuts and you don't get dinged by customs, look into Canadian hand dyers because often Canadian hand dyers price their wares at the same dollar amount in Canadian to American, but what is the exchange rate? I think it's 80 cents to the dollar Canadian US to US. So you're getting American hand-dyed yarn at significantly cheaper, but then when a lot of yarns come to Canada, like Spin Cycle or the Wandering Flock or La Bien-Aimée, who was someone else who was at Knit City and I saw her, you get a single skein for like almost $50, which is but also, I mean, that's how currency conversion works. But then I had said to my friend Carolyn as we go in, oh, if you see like a DK or, you know, 2 skeins or something that could make a pretty puffy t-shirt. I was thinking of the Knitting for Olive puff tee or something along the lines of Lily Kate, sorry, there's no mohair just all over. Lily Kate's Poison Apple top, which is so pretty and has these really beautiful pleated puff sleeves. I said, that's something else that's on my list, but it's lower on my list. You know, we have other things that we're prioritizing. And then we walked by the Wandering Flock, and I did want to see it because, you know, it's one of those super beautiful things. All of this is custom milled, which is very interesting to me. And, of course, I watch Aro of Aro Knits and Pearls, and she uses a lot of Wandering Flock, and I wanted to see it in person. Also, Geraldine Yang of the Wandering Flock designed a sweater pattern that I have in an issue of Pom Pom that you guys are currently sitting on called the Already, which I think is quite cute and I hope to one day make using a bunch of scraps. It's very similar to the Sycamore sweater by Petite Knit. You have those like short row intarsia like gashes or branches that I think would be great for using up scrap yarn. A tangent. And then on the samples rack, Carolyn was like, look, Rachel, it's a puffy sleeve t-shirt. And they had a sample of this exact pattern knit in this yarn, a different color. And it was, for my size, a 1 skein project. And I thought, perfect, that's worth it to me. To see a beautiful, I think this is one of the most like colorful and out there yarns that I bought at Knit City. And you can see a little bit more of the variance here. The colors are a lot lower contrast, so as you can see, wound up. This, I mean, it looks like the color is lost because it's on such big needles, but like even balled up, it wasn't going to happen. And it was pretty perfect to get 1 skein of super special yarn that's only sold in 1 store in Canada at the Knitting Loft, which I have been to and is actually quite a nice store. And, you know, get 1 skein, have 1 super whimsical fun project, and have that be like a really nice Knit City souvenir. And it was a really good moment of decisiveness for me. I'm usually a very indecisive person, especially when it comes to buying stuff and buying yarns. So it was just nice for me to see, you know, Carolyn to look and spot the perfect thing I was looking for. It would be a 1 skein project. It would be a great way to use up one of the more colorful skeins that activates my magpie brain in shiny colors. This is a really soft, nice mohair. It's custom milled, which is something I always like to support and see in yarn brands because I think it's pretty hard to do and get off the ground as a custom milled yarn brand operation. Yeah, it's 80% kid mohair, 20% silk, 50 grams is 430 yards or 393 meters, and I used 45 grams of it. This is 5 grams. And it didn't take very long because you knit it on 6.5 millimeter needles. So my plan is to use this as a layering piece in the spring and summer because it's so lightweight. It's 45 grams. It bundles up pretty small. I can just pop this at the bottom of my bag, and when it gets chilly here in the evenings, I can wear it over top all my pastel complementary color tank tops or with a bralette to wear out for drinks on the patio with my friends. So not a very practical project, but one that I really am happy that I made. Okay, less than 30 minutes. We're going. It's happening. Okay. The next, and I think last finished object I have to show you, not counting a sock, but only 1 sock, is I finished my fluffy pink cardigan. And it looks like this. Well, okay, I say finished. All the knitting is done and it's been blocked, but I, as you can see, still have a bunch of ends to weave in. And I have to add buttons, but here it is. It's kind of a struggle to show you. Cardigan. And this is knit in 1 strand of Malabrigo Ultimate Sock in the color Rosalinda, and 1 strand Emily C. Gillies Silk Mohair in the color Sandstone. And it's a fitted V-neck cardigan. That I mean, actually, I don't hate this, but it's a little much for me. A little bright. What I want is like a fun girls' night cardigan. Picture this, me with just a little cami underneath, a fun button here, and then like this is my top. I think it'll be cute. I also think it's a really fun way to add a pop of color in those really grim, dark winter months. And the buttons I would say 80% sure I'm gonna add. I got from what I think is the newest yarn store in Toronto, Good Grief Yarn. It's on Dundas, if you've ever been to Toronto. These fake pearl shank buttons, which were not expensive, but I think are quite cute. These, I think that this is the move. Like, my hand's gonna cover it, but like, oof, these buttons, like that. I think it'll be cute. So I have to sew these on and weave in the ends, but that's usually the least exciting part for me. A few of the ends have been woven in, but not all of them. I try and pace myself because sometimes if I just don't want to weave in ends, but I force myself to do it all at once, I do a messy job, and that's not worth it, you know? Like to fumble the very last second. This is also way too hot to wear right now. Also, it's not soft. So that's another reason why I think it would be good for, you know, spring and autumn or like a winter girls' night thing, because it's really hard to dress cute for dinner or drinks in the winter when it's -40. But I think that this would be a really good way of doing that because it's really quite warm. And in this weather where it's so humid and muggy and hot, it's like against my skin. But I'm pretty sensitive to mohair. I'm pretty sensitive to wool or just animal fibers in general. I consider it a personal failing. If I was given 3 wishes, it would be one of them. But to change that. But I'm still very happy. And I cast this on in the dead of winter, and I needed something like this, something bright and fluffy and kind of irreverent as just a bright pink fluffy cardigan. And I'm happy. I think it'll be cute with jeans and a white t-shirt as well. Maybe I'll wear it to brunch. Maybe I'll be a fancy lady who brunches, wears a fluffy pink hand knit cardigan. I think that would be nice. So I personally feel a theme with this sort of color palette, the pinks and blues and purples, kind of pastel-y. And while I feel like the next finished object really maybe ties that together, let me know what you think. So, in an update that is at least very exciting to me, I'm very happy to be able to tell you my sock mojo is back, which, thank goodness. I didn't want to put a lot of pressure on myself. I didn't knit socks when I didn't want to knit socks, and it came back to me, which is wonderful. But I think it's funny that, like, these all feel kind of in the same color family, sort of. I guess this is my year of pink, blue, and purple. But these are just a pair of 3x1 ribbed socks. If you're looking for a pattern for a 3x1 ribbed sock, I'll link the one that I first started using down below. It's by Kate Atherley. But this is just my version of a vanilla sock. I like a 3x1 rib, and I just did it down the front and then stockinette down the back. And this is yarn. So the main sock, this, is Round Mountain Fibers birch fingering, which is an organic wool and then nylon blend, and in the color Black Hat Chickadee. And I got this on a trip to Vermont with my friend over a year ago, and I liked that it's inspired by birds. It's part of their ornithology collection, which is nice because I also am a fan of birds, and I'm a big fan of the Black Cap Chickadee, which was nice when this is the colorway that I liked the most. And I didn't have in stash a good contrast color for the heel when I bought it, which is why I didn't use it, and then my sock mojo just went away after knitting too many socks in a row last summer and a bunch of gift socks. And then Emily C. Gillies, when I ordered that mohair sandstone and they were moving to Nova Scotia, included a couple mini skeins as they were clearing out their stock, which was so kind and generous of them. And one of them was this bluey with little green speckles that you see as the heel tone cuff contrast. One of my roommates just came home. And I thought it matched perfectly with the blue gray bits in the sock yarn. So I cast these on, and I'm really happy that I did because they were so enjoyable. I went through this sock very quickly because I was just so in the mood to knit socks. And also because the effect that this yarn has is just so appealing to me. It's so interesting. So I got this and I thought, here's a photo of what it looked like in the skein. I was hoping it would be kind of a micro stripe. I was worried it was going to be too busy because I've had that happen before and my brain has a difficult time processing it. But instead, I think the coolest possible thing has happened. It's self-patterning. It's not just self-striping, but it has these zigzags instead. I'm showing you on the stockinette side because it's a little bit clearer, because on the purl side, you kind of lose a little bit of it. Sorry, on the rib side, you lose a little bit of it because the purl stitches move to the back. But it's like, look at that. Amazing. I knit these on a 2mm needle on a 30, no, my goodness, and a 64 stitch count because I'm experimenting with that to see if I like a really dense sock that's a little bit looser. And I mean, trying this on, it fits nicely, but a 3x1 rib sock always fits nicely. It's the perfect vanilla sock to me. And oh my goodness, I just love this so much. I love this pattern. I didn't do anything with it. This is just like a basic vanilla sock. It's all the yarn. And if the dyer behind Round Mountain Fibers did this on purpose, genius. My hat is tipped to you. This is so cool. How do you have that knowledge in your brain? To not just make something self-striping, but self-patterning like this in a zigzag? It's amazing. And I've gotten not very far on the second, but as you can see, I've had other things going on with my knitting that were a little bit higher priority because I focused on knitting the mohair garments while it was still chilly because it's really hard to work with those when it's warm for me. And here's the second sock. And it's just really nice and I like it, but this is genius. This is magic and I love it. The only thing is then, I did a heel flap and gusset because that's my preferred fit of a sock heel. I have very thick feet, I have very wide and thick feet. And this micro striping that you see here is what I thought it was going to be when I bought it. And it is just a little bit annoying that the really cool spiral pattern is broken up by the heel flap. Just the sheer amount of stitches that happen when you're doing gusset decreases, but it corrects back into the pattern soon after, and I just loved it so much. Like, this scratches an itch I didn't know I had. I'm sure it's not very interesting to watch me wax poetic about sock yarn, but like, I just think it's neat, you know? Anyway. The Sock Mojo has not stopped at this pair. I also have made significant progress on the acorn socks I have been working on since the beginning of autumn. So these suffered from A, lack of Sock Mojo, and B, these are my first toe-up socks ever. And normally socks are my on-the-go projects because they're very easy to me. Sorry, they're very familiar to me, the construction, and unless I'm doing some type of really intricate lace or cable or colorwork pattern, I can usually knit them without having to look at a pattern. And I made this my on-the-go knitting project, except I do need to look at the pattern because I don't know how to knit a toe-up sock. And there's, you know, some patterning and stuff. And then I got to the bit that I was really excited about. The reason why I got these socks in the first place, beyond wanting to learn how to knit toe-up socks, this acorn cap texture, which is really hard to see in this yarn. But I think you can kind of see it. And I did the setup rows. And then it just wasn't working, and I couldn't understand the instructions. I would do what I was told, and it would look nothing like the pattern. I was stalking everybody's Ravelry pages, trying to like zoom in to the stitches as closely as I possibly could to try and figure out what their stitches were doing that mine weren't. So then this sat in the timeout corner for a few weeks because I felt quite frustrated that I couldn't figure it out. It's been a very long time since I haven't understood instructions in a knitting pattern. And I went through a few creative funks and creative if you watched Knits by Mandy's recent video where she does the excavation blanket but as a pillow, a lot of what she articulates about creative energy depletion and feeling like she was in a rut, very much because she was so busy with work, very much resonated with me as I was in this push to get my baby thesis in and finish my class and work full time and do all these other things. So I wasn't going to push through anything I didn't want to knit. I took up a couple other hobbies in the meantime, and this sat in the corner, which I felt really bad about because this sock has been sitting in the corner so much. And then I came back to it earlier this week and I opened up the pattern to try and tackle it again, hoping that my brain had maybe, you know, when you're not thinking about something but your brain is solving a problem in the background. And I looked at the pattern page and it's because I had done the setup rows wrong. Like, it was really that simple. It was simply an error of reading comprehension. I had just done the setup rows wrong, and I did understand the instructions for how to do this texture. I had just not put the stitches where they needed to be in order to do that texture. So I just frogged what I had done, and then clearly it's working out. So I have one more, I guess, pattern repeat of this to do, and then I do the cuff basically, and I start the next one. And I'm really looking forward to starting the next one because I really enjoyed the process of, I really liked Judy's Magic cast on and then doing the increases, and then I really liked this texture bit is really good on the go bust knitting. And so I'm looking forward to another summer of socks. And that's good because it's getting really bloody warm here. There were some days where it was literally 35 degrees, not like with the humidity. I mean, that was the temperature here in Canada. We don't have air conditioning. My mom got me a tower fan for my birthday to help me cope. I was on the phone with my father who lives in South Florida, and I told him the temperature and he was like, that's hotter than here by like a lot. And I live in South Florida. I was like, yeah, I know. And then we had the second worst air quality in the entire world for a little while because of the wildfire smoke, and then it all went to New York City, so. I mean, I guess you heard, but my energy's been all over the place. I'm sure you can pick up on that. And, oh, that's actually all of it. Those are all my projects. Past and current. Past and present. My Cumulus tea. I would love in this moment to show you an in-progress Cumulus tea, but I actually frogged all of it this morning because I opened the instructions and realized that I had read them wrong. And I really made such a rookie mistake. Not even a rookie mistake. A stupid mistake, because I had done this type of construction so many times before, but because I had done this so many times before, I assumed I knew what I was doing. I cast on late at night. I cast on during a period where my brain was occupied by so many other things. And that's why you don't knit while you're distracted. Or you do, but you don't cast on when you're distracted. And then set yourself up for doing a pattern repeat. So I will show you my swatch instead. But I am knitting, or I will soon once again be knitting, the Cumulus Tea by Petite Knit in this Color Mart Wild Silk cone that I got in late summer in this gray color. I don't think you can buy this because Color Mart sells a lot of mill-end dead stock, and I think they have a bunch of things that are regular supply, and I think this was not one of them. But I was very intrigued by this because A, I love this kind of color of gray. B, they had a sale for first-time buyers. There was some type of discount associated with buying for the first time. And that made this cone of 100% silk pretty affordable. I had seen other people knit with Color Mart yarns before, and it seemed like a worthwhile endeavor for me. And I thought I could get a full garment out of this. And silk seemed like, fingering weight silk seemed like a great idea for a summer garment. And also, wild silk is different than the mulberry or balmic silk that I think we're used to in both commercial products and like knitting yarn silk. It's not, well, I think it is technically, I think it's probably would fall under the category cruelty-free, but it's a different species of moth or silkworm. And these are the ones that grow wild. Like the Bomix moth has been bred, so now it's a domesticated species. I'm sure I'm not using the right terminology, but I think you know what I mean. Whereas this is just a little different type of worm, and then they harvest the cocoons afterwards, so they don't boil it alive. So I was very interested in trying this. And I knit a swatch because after the great growing of my mother's camisole, number 7, the one, and seeing so many people give warnings about how difficult it can be, you can't assume a lot of the things that you can assume with wool yarn applies to silk. And I knew that it would grow. So I knit a swatch on the recommended needle size, and it was very crisp. It's like almost crunchy. This is not the super silky soft silk that I think like other things are, but I'm still really into it and I like this fabric a lot. The thing is I dunked this in water. I didn't even leave it to soak. I filled up a little cup of water. I dunked this in a couple times. I waited no more than 60 seconds. I pulled it out and I dried it, and it had grown by 4 stitches. So pre-blocking gauge was 28.5 stitches, and post-blocking gauge was 24, maybe 24.5 stitches if I pulled it. And it's super nice and drapey, and I think that this would feel lovely, but 1, the gauge for the pattern is 28 stitches, and 2, I think it's just a little bit too see-through. For my taste, I think it's coming across as more opaque on camera, but in person, I put it against my skin, I put it against my bra strap as I was wearing it, and I put it in front of my mouth to see if I could see my mouth move, and I don't think you can on screen, but I could in the mirror. And that was good because I wanted it on a denser gauge as well. But the original is knit in Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, which is a cruelty-free silk, I think. I don't know. But it's a very thin, it's a very light fingering weight. And this is definitely a thicker one. This is 130 grams, is 630 meters. And so I thought, okay, according to the yarn estimates given in the pattern, I'm going to need more yarn than I have to knit this. But this is a thicker yarn, and it really seems to want to grow, and to get a 28 stitch garment, I think I would have to go down to a 2mm needle, and I don't want to. But I think I could go down to a 2.5mm needle, get probably around a 26, 27 stitch gauge, like the fabric more, and then therefore have the yarn go a little bit longer because the stitches aren't as tight. And so I cast on with a 2.5mm needle, and it was going well. Except after an inch, I don't know if I was stressed about my research project or school or all the different things I have going on, but all of a sudden, my rowing out was pretty extreme. So I have switched to combination knitting for knitting flat. I did that for this. All the parts that were knit flat before I joined for the armholes were knit flat, and maybe you can see a discernible difference in gauge, but I personally can't. I could a little bit before I blocked it, but I had swatched and I saw that it wasn't enough to bother me after blocking, and I have found that combination knitting is so much easier on my hands and my wrists, because the previous way I was purling caused a lot of pain, and I purled so tightly that I usually had to go up 1 or 2 needle sizes on the purl end to have them match my knit end, my knit rows. And I looked, and all of a sudden I was rowing out like crazy on this silk. And you can see maybe a little bit here, and it's showing up more on camera than it does in person, and this didn't bother me. A little bit of texture in terms of uneven tension is going to be what it's going to be. I'm making my own clothes. I'm not a machine, and silk is a little bit finicky. But I was so upset about this that I steam blocked it, and it barely eased up. So I posted about it to my Instagram. A bunch of you guys had really good suggestions or things to do. What I did was I ended up frogging. I had knit about 4 inches of it, of the yoke, when I kind of looked down and thought, this is actually a deal breaker for me. This is too much. I am not happy with the gauge, and I don't think it's going to, it's too extreme for it to be fixed with a block. It looked stripy, it looked almost like an intentional effect, except it wasn't consistent enough to be passed off as intentional, and I knew when I connected in the round that would go away, and so it wasn't to the standard that I wanted, and I knew I wouldn't wear it if I'd kept it. So I put in an afterthought lifeline, frogged it back to a little bit less than an inch, maybe about 2 centimeters from where I started, where my tension was fine, and then I started knitting it. So the knits I am doing on a 2.5 millimeter needle, and the purls I'm doing on a 2.25 millimeter needle. And unfortunately, I don't have interchangeables for under a 3 mil, and so I have just 2 fixed circulars, and I'm just one row with this one and one row with this one, so I have needles flying everywhere and everything's clanging, and I keep thinking that there are bugs on me because I keep having the end of one of these needles touch my skin and then I jump. But that's fine. That's workable. And one very nice person I follow on Instagram and who follows me back responded, because I sometimes struggle to figure out, and again, this is like, it's almost embarrassing to admit because I've been knitting for 2 years now and I really should know better, but sometimes I look at my knitting and I can normally read my knitting, but here's a row of rowing out. Was that a knit row or a purl row? I can't tell. And sometimes I try and count back, but I'm like, okay, do I start with the ones that are on my stitches, like the loops that are on the needle, or do I start with the row below that? Is that my knit stitch or is that my, anyway. So shout out to Jamie who walked me through this in my Instagram DMs and who did it without judgment. Really appreciate that. So it turns out that I have gone from purling so tightly, purling Portuguese style, that I have to go up 1 or 2 needle sizes to have it be close to matching my knits, to knitting so loosely that I had to go down a needle size on my purls to have them almost match my knits, which I think is ultimately a good problem to have. I would prefer to have even tension, but I think that is indicative of how much easier continental purling is on my hands, and it's so much less fatiguing, and that they're looser. And so there's less strain as I'm like whipping the yarn and strangling the stitch and doing all these different things. So I was doing that. But then this morning, I finished a job interview and I opened up the pattern on my laptop because I've been really enjoying knitting it. It's a clear pattern, it's a classic style. Really looking forward to having this. I think it'll be so cute. I wasn't doing increases for the front V-neck. I was just doing raglan increases because it's a V-neck. So you increase along the V to shape it. You increase for the 2 sleeve armpit raglan lines, and you just, it's a raglan. It's a top-down raglan. I wasn't doing the front increases. I didn't put stitch markers for them, and I just wasn't doing them. And there's no way to fix that halfway. I was 2 inches in. I'd already frogged it. I just immediately, as soon as I looked down, I realized there was no way that I had done it. It wasn't, oh, maybe I'm just misreading this now and I've forgotten. No, I knew that I hadn't done it, so I pulled out the needle and I ripped out the whole thing. And then about 5 minutes after that, I thought, oh, I should have waited because I knew I was going to record today, and it would have been nicer if I could show you. But what's done is done. I have a cone, I have my loose needles, I have a swatch, and hopefully before the end of July, I will have a cumulus tee that I love. So I'm still really enthusiastic about this project. I'm hoping to, as I edit this, cast on again, pause, put all the markers in where they're supposed to be, and make sure I'm doing it right this time. But I really like my cumulus blouse that I made to functionally be a DK weight cumulus tee. I'm really hoping I love my proper cumulus tee. And I think it'll be a winner for me. I just need to do it right. So those are all my current and existing projects. I have a bunch of acquisitions, but they're all from Knit City, except for 2 things. So I'm not going to show you any of them, and you can see them in my Knit City Montreal recap and sort of vlog. And, oh no, okay, I'll deal with that later. And my friend Carolyn also shows you what she got, but I did get another library book from the library. Magical Woodland Knits by Claire Garland, and I'm hoping to make 1 or 2 of the patterns from this book because I really like Claire Garland's patterns. I've been doing a lot of long and slow projects, and I feel like a scrappy, fast, mindful, thoughtful, attention-holding project is the perfect thing to give me a little bit of a sense of accomplishment. I know that I just showed you a bunch of finished objects, but to help me deal with this cumulus tea embarrassment. And I really like these, and I think I have scrap yarns in different colors that would mean that I wouldn't have to buy anything but safety eyes for this. And top of my list is the mallard duck in this book, which is super cute. This guy. I like birds, I like ducks, I like mallards, and I think it would be really nice to make. Here's another photo of him. And I might cast that on tonight because I really like showing you guys library books that the Ottawa Public Library has available, because I know it's super obvious, check the library for knitting books and resources and patterns, especially while you are on a budget, but I sometimes just simply forget. And while I have been on a pause from buying many yarns and knitting related things, this has been a fun way to add some excitement and to save some money and support my local library, especially since I was in Toronto when this book first came in, and then I had to pay $1 for a restock fee. And then I ordered it again, and now I have it in my possession. It's also just a really cute book with a lot of thoughtful details. As you can see, they did the photo shoots out in nature to kind of add to the realism and the whimsy of this, and there's really cute illustrations. This photo, so cute. Come on, look at the little squirrel. Look at him. Adorable, except right now I'm angry at all the squirrels because they keep destroying my zucchini plants. They don't even eat them. They just cut them off and then leave them there for me to see. And they have all these really adorable illustrations of the animals that the knitting patterns are for on the title pages, and then also on the actual pattern pages, and then it's the cover. So yeah. It's nice, and Claire Garland knit the famous frog that took the internet by storm and who is a valued member of our household, and so I think it would be nice to give him a friend. And I asked my roommate, if I knit this mallard, would you be okay with me displaying him somewhere in our house? And she said I would be offended if you didn't, so I have the okay. I think this would be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And I like showing you guys fun things you can get at the Ottawa Public Library that you probably can also get at your own public library. And so I also saw that the Ottawa Public Library, and maybe yours, has a feature where you can suggest 3 books a month for the library to add to their catalog if they don't already have it. And they have rules for this. The book can't be more than 2 years old, and it can't be a super popular release because they're probably already going to get that. And so I used this feature to request Worsted by Aimé Gilles, La Bien-Aimée, the maker, the founder, the owner of that business. As we all know, she has 2 books out, and one of them is Worsted. It came out a year and a half ago. And it's a pattern book that she curated of a bunch of designers knitting worsted weight patterns in one of her, I think it's her Corey worsted base. And there's one pattern in that I love so much. It's the Perennial by Nora Gone. And for months and months, I was actually over a year, I was waiting for this pattern to be released individually because it's a beautiful pattern book, but I didn't want to spend like $40 on a book that would just be cluttered in my house that I only wanted one pattern for. So I requested it from the Ottawa Public Library, and they're ordering it, and it's in. And I saw on my account, I was checking pretty frequently, and I saw the notification, we've approved your suggestion, and we will be ordering this book, and you can place a hold on it. And I thought, neat, and then I went, I'm number 17. I'm the one who requested the book. I don't know how other people knew it was coming. How am I 17 on a book that doesn't exist in the library yet? But anyway, hopefully I will have the perennial pattern soon. Of course, immediately after I requested, a bunch of helpful commenters told me, oh, you can get it now. It's the individual pattern is out now. but now the library is going to get it for me, so that's very exciting. I also requested and had approved, which is a very validating feeling, from the Ottawa Public Library, the book Sheep, Shepherd, and Land by Anna Hunter. I watched her give a talk at Knit City Montreal, which I will talk about in a Knit City video, and I want to read her book. I also think it would be good to have the Ottawa Public Library have her book, and apparently they agreed because they approved it in like 3 days, and it took them 3 months to approve Worsted. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully once the 16 people ahead of me enjoy their copy of Worsted, and the 3 people ahead of me on Sheep, Shepherd, and Land have enjoyed that book, I can show you those books here, and you can get them from your local retailer or library as well. But it's nice, because sometimes I don't have the money to buy these things, but then if I ask the library to buy them, I can use them, and also the person still gets money. So I like that. Okay, all right. Oh no, I have one more work in progress, but I will be really, really fast about it because it's not knitting. So in December, I bought on a whim, this is a complete impulse purchase, a cross-stitch kit while I was buying my brother some card games from a local toy store in Toronto. And I got, it's this. It was $8. And I think that I thought it was an embroidery, because it says embroidery kit. I thought it was an embroidery kit, because at the time I was still really focused on trying to learn embroidery so I could embroider my mittens and a few other things. And then I got home and I realized it was cross-stitch, and then it kind of sat in the corner for a while I was waiting to want to cross-stitch. And that happened a few weeks ago. So I have been working on this very slowly. This is the progress I've made. I'm almost done the greens. And I feel really no rush with this whatsoever, and I find it very soothing. I like cross-stitch. I think I'm making all sorts of mistakes. I have been learning a lot, but I find it very meditative, and I find it really easy to stop and start. Sometimes knitting, and I find this with my Cumulus tee or my pink cardigan, when I'm knitting flat, I find it hard to stop halfway because then the needles are kind of in an inconvenient place and the stitches are more likely to slide off even with my stitch stoppers. So I feel like I have to finish a row if I sit down and commit to a row, whereas I can just do a few stitches and put this down. And I feel the same way about my socks, rather in the round projects. But whenever my wrists and elbows are acting up, or I simply don't want to knit, or I realize I have to frog my Cumulus tee for the second time, I find it very soothing to just work on this for a little bit. And I'm hoping to then put this on a tote bag at some point. I'll just sew it onto a tote bag and I'll be happy and it'll be really, really cute. And this takes a really long time. You think that something this little would not take a ton of time to make? I have found, also I'm a beginner, this is the first time I've cross-stitched as an adult. It wouldn't take very long. It's much slower than knitting, but it's nice. And I like it. And I think I would be feeling a lot more yes about cross-stitch if I saw more immediate applications for it. But I don't love the look of just hanging an embroidery hoop on the wall because then it feels like a waste of a loop because that's a tool. Like I wouldn't hang up my knitting needles forever for display purposes either because I would like to use them. So I like that I can sew this onto a pouch or a tote bag and have that be what that is. But I don't think that my roommates would love if I covered our house in cross-stitch framed scenes. And so, yeah, I haven't gotten a super like, yay, cross-stitch. Also, I don't need more hobbies, but I love them and I will continue to accumulate more hobbies. But I did then buy 2 more cross-stitch kits because these ones were kits that once again gave me the thread that I needed and the pattern and all the stuff. And these are magnets. So I don't have to worry about framing anything. I don't have to worry about what am I going to do with this. I don't have to worry about, oh no, that's going to take up so much space in my house. No, it's not, because it's a little Bulbasaur magnet. And I'm holding it like this because the pattern and the instructions are these QR codes and I don't want you to be able to take it. But here's Bulbasaur, and he is a magnet, or he will be. I got this from Ellipses box. Here's the sweet note and brand sticker, who makes these kits out of Montreal, which is very convenient for me because these arrived a day after I ordered them and I didn't have to pay for shipping from Etsy. I'll have this link down below if you happen to be a cross-stitcher who also has a bit of a nerdy side and a lot of nostalgia for Pokemon. I also got this Umbreon and Espeon magnet kit. My brother, Umbreon and Espeon are two of his favorite evolutions, so I thought, oh great, this will be a good gift for Julian in the future. And now that I'm seeing them, I don't know if it is because these are very kitsch, and my brother has a very developed sense of style, and I don't know if this fits in with it, but I don't know, I'll feel it out. And also I would have to finish these before I can give them to him for a gift. But I am really excited because, I mean, as you can see, all this stuff is here. And I like it, and it's small. It's not overwhelming, and it's a nice thing I can do when it's way too hot for me to want to touch wool, or I'm frustrated by my cumulus tea, or I've been having too much fun knitting my cumulus tea and now my elbows hurt. And it's just nice to learn new things and to feel like I have the energy for new things, because for so long I've just been thinking about my major research paper and my class and my work, and then trying to like feed myself and grow my vegetables and be a person. So I'm feeling a lot of excitement and energy and enthusiasm about knitting and filming and cross stitch and other hobbies that I will talk to you about at a later date. And I hope that this was a fun episode for you to watch. I've missed you guys. I've been talking to myself in my head, but talking to you guys in my head, like pretending I'm podcasting, which is funny. That doesn't seem to have helped smooth the transition into returning to filming myself talking about knitting. Now that I have a lot more free time on my hands, I'm hoping to be more present with this channel over the summer. No promises, because I feel like that's a jinx, but I'm hoping that that's the case. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. If you guys have any cross-stitch, I don't know, tips or tricks for me, let me know. If you guys are knitting something really fun and funky, let me know. If you guys went to Knit City, Montreal, let me know. And I'm hoping we'll talk again soon. Okay, all right, thank you so much for watching.